Okay, we've had a couple of questions in, not very many at the moment. Hopefully we'll be able to pull Christina back up at the moment. If you're there, Christina, stick your camera on and we'll take some questions then. There you are, lovely job, great, thanks. So there was a really interesting chat going on actually during that whole thing. You probably had time to read it now, talking about, from Matthew Hopes, talking about looking at leatherback turtles whilst you're also out looking at dolphins and porpoises, cetaceans. This is something that came up in previous presentations this morning, was the idea that when you're out doing a very specific and targeted survey, whether you can use the opportunity to target other species there for incidental records as well, or whether that just isn't possible because the ID skills aren't necessarily there. Locally, anecdotally, I live very close to Fishguard. I've noticed that I don't tend to see so many sunfish these days. So just wondering really, Cliff Benson from Sea Trust has answered a lot of these questions in the chat, but Christina, if you have any comments about the question about whether or not you have any data for leatherback turtles or indeed other species that come in at the time that you're doing your surveys.
Well, actually, we make a note of all the species that we see and that we can identify. It is true that we focus on cetaceans really, but we have also have records for some sharks, I think, or in general interesting things that we see. But definitely leatherback turtles are not within the most seen one. No, not at all. I don't think we even have one in these ferry surveys.
Yeah. Okay. And likewise then for you, Anthony, is there the opportunity in some of these quite targeted surveys to start looking at wider species as well, or are you very closely focused? Anthony, did you get that? I think maybe Anthony can't hear me. Can you still hear me, Christina?
I can, yes.
All right, so it's not my microphone. There we go. Okay, well, while we're waiting for Anthony to get back up then, there's a question just coming actually again for you, Christina, from David Hill, not part of your study, but closely related. Do you know how the recently proposed marine turbine projects, for example, near Bardsley Island, monitor and more importantly prevent accidental cetacean injury or mortality? Will prey killed by turbines inadvertently attract cetaceans closer to them, for example? Have you got any information there?
Well, I'm afraid I cannot give you much information of that. I am not very aware of this, how these marine turbines projects can impact the cetaceans. It is true that there are several studies talking about the potential disturbance, but well, it's not within my field of expertise.
Yeah, okay. Well, I know that there have been some projects, haven't there, looking at potential impacts in Ramsey Sound. There was a test turbine, for example, there, and various other projects as well. There is data out there, but it's obviously not part of your actual specific remit there. Okay. Can you hear me now, Anthony? Sounds like possibly not. Okay. We have here a comment from Anthony, in fact. Scavengers. Yeah, about carcasses attracting scavengers, for example, there. That's good. I mean, one thing that we talked about earlier this morning as well was the idea that it's quite difficult sometimes to get records of the more widely distributed species because people don't tend to record them. I'm guessing, Christina, you don't have too much trouble getting people to record things like cetaceans because it's quite a memorable event. But when it comes to slightly more common species, like maybe seal, for example, do people bother to record that? Do you struggle to get data?
Well, most of our campaigns, our monitoring campaigns, are targeted campaigns. So we basically based all our analysis on data that we have gathered. We also have some records, so interesting records that people might send through, but in general, these records may lack some important information, such as the exact location. It's going to be useful. So all the data we can, the more data we can have, the better. But I would say the main problem we face, and this is something that Anthony has mentioned in his presentation, and I suppose many other presenters have mentioned it as well, is that it's very difficult to find open source data containing environmental variables such as well, tidal information. We are talking about long historic time series. We are talking about series with a high granularity, high level of granularity or fine granularity, and possibly that's the main difficulties that we find when we try to model or establish the distribution of a species or understand how it behaves. Let's say.
Great, lovely. So I'm afraid you're getting all the questions now, Christina, because it feels like Anthony can't actually hear us at the moment. If you can, Anthony, then do crop up on the mic there. So another question then coming in here for you, Christina, from Matthew Hopes. Have you noticed any longer term trends in terms of the species declining or being stable in the Irish Sea?
Well, one of the things, these are some preliminary results, and these ideas are based on simple exploratory analysis, and thus there can be many confounding factors. But my last slide was a little bit about this. We don't seem to have many declining trends for these four species that we have been talking about. We have seen that switch in the common dolphin, and we have seen that there's an increase in resource dolphins, especially during the summer and during autumn. Now, again, this is an exploratory analysis, and obviously it's not a modeling exercise. Therefore, the conclusions that we reach have to be carefully interpreted, because as I said, there can be other confounding factors such as worse survey conditions. You never know.
Yeah, fascinating. Okay. Anthony, can you hear us? Just check before I ask all the questions of Christina. Sounds like you can't. Okay. There we are. So just one more question then, I think, Christina, for now, if we can. Anthony is busy answering questions on the chat. It looks like he's maybe just got a problem with his audio at the moment. So I'm afraid you're in the hot seat at the moment, Christina. So really just looking at how you can use the results from your study. It's a great, quite long-term and quite large data set, with a huge amount of effort gone into collecting it, which is brilliant. And how do you feel or can you use that to extrapolate to the wider area, or is it only applicable to your study area?
Well, that's a very good question, because obviously we are in this particular case that we have been sharing, we are only doing a transect, and this is a very specific area. So that means that the conclusions that we can reach relate to that area, and we have to be more cautious when extrapolating findings. But having this information on other explanatory variables, environmental variables, can help us understand the behavior and the distribution in other areas. So they are useful in both senses.
Yeah. Okay. Great. That's really, really helpful. Thanks ever so much. Okay. So I don't think we're going to get to ask any audio questions of Anthony at the moment, but do keep typing your questions in if you wish to, and we'll get to as many of those as we can on the actual chat itself. Also, if you visit the main platform page, there is the facility there to provide feedback on today's session, and that'll be very much appreciated. So just a few minutes early now, we are going to take a quick break. We will be back at 2:30 to talk about pollinator abundance with Dr. Jamie Allison. So if you'd like to log back in for that one, then we'll see you then. Otherwise, have a good day.